Welcome back to the Shuffle Squad. Zach Massage here. We're gonna be covering over the three major events that happened over the past weekend, and that's gonna be the Melbourne Regionals, the Utrecht special event, and the Santiago Regionals in Chile. So we have three events, three separate things, and I just want to kind of update everyone what's going on the metagame here. Obviously, I can't go through every single deck because all of these had pretty large day twos. But if you're preparing for Portland, those last League Cups of the season, because League Cups, as far as I understand, end in May. Whatever you're trying to prepare for, I'm hoping this video updates you on all of that. Be sure to give this video a like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about it, and we'll start off with Melbourne. So we can see that the top cut here is Gardevoir, 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 couple Terrabox, and one Raging Bolt. If we look over at the statistics, we can see that Raging Bolt was actually the #1 played deck in day two, which is quite interesting because Raging Bolt kind of got put back on the map just the week previously with Christian Labella, or maybe it was 2 weeks previously. Either way, Christian Labella won Milwaukee Regionals with Raging Bolt. Kind of showed us, here's exactly how you should play the deck. I won, I'm a good player. Now everyone's kind of popping off. Other thing to note is Joltik Box has kind of exploded in popularity post Monterey Regionals, which is basically Milwaukee. Now we're seeing it become kind of a real like top 4, top 5 deck. So the metagame as is Raging Bolt's entered into the top 4 or 5 decks. I mean, it's always been in and out of the metagame, but here it is, it's back, single prize carding it up. We got Gardevoir that's been kind of put up on the map with Henry Chow's win. Then we saw Brent win Monterey. We saw it win with Brent's list over in Europe. We've kind of seen it go all around, and Gardevoir has been one of those top decks, so not so surprising. Dragapult's really been kind of the underlying BDIF in the formats, with players kind of flocking towards that deck. Now, the big debate is Gardevoir #1 or is Dragapult #1? I don't know. I'm team Dragapult, but Gardevoir definitely has more results than Dragapult for wins at this point, where Dragapult normally is absorbing many of the top 32 spots. Joltik Box existing in kind of the counter of the metagame. It doesn't particularly do well against Gardevoir or Dragapult based off of people having lines against them. It doesn't particularly do well against Gardevoir or Raging Bolt, but can do okay against Dragapult and other decks within the top, like Goldango and stuff like that. And then Terrabox is our next one at 5, where it's having a few solid spots, not necessarily in the double-digit count for day 2, but 7 is a little bit more than the other decks. So you can kind of see the metagame kind of makes sense and falls down immediately after Dango. So if we look at the results, we see that Brent Tonneson has picked up another win. And not only did he pick up another win with his Gardevoir deck, he's found himself in a situation where he has the #1 played deck of all time on Limitless. So just going down this long list of players, if you're playing Gardevoir, I feel like it's honestly a mistake, straight up a mistake, not to at least try Brent's list out. It's the most successful Gardevoir list, and if Brent, being the most successful player in the game right now or this season, is not, and if he's played it to back to back to back top cuts, because he won Monterey, then he top 8'd Milwaukee, then he won this event, and not only did it do whatever, it's won other events from other players as well. So Gardevoir really successful. Now Brent comes along with a handful of other players. Like, I know that Natalie Millar tested with Brent and played the exact same 60. And then we see a couple interesting inclusions here. We see Daichi, fantastic player across the board, playing Terrabox. So I think with all these Gardevoir players up here, definitely one of those things where Gardevoir is trying to get countered by Terrabox, like Terrabox is trying to counter the Gardevoir, that is. So it's kind of interesting take on the metagame. We might see more Terrabox pop up. I could really see Terrabox kind of coming into that 5th, 6th slot at Portland. Now we see we also see Sota Kasai playing Raging Bolt. Now, I don't think it's any surprise here. It's looking very similar exactly to what Christian Labella played. They've cut a Crispin, they added an Iono, And I think a lot of the counts are very similar across the board here. I mean, yeah, they cut like pal pad and stuff like that and whatever. So if you look through here, nothing too crazy. We see that there's a Flareon Noctowl. We see that there's a Milotic Farigiraf. Decks like these will always kind of pop in and out of the metagame, and just being some kind of something. We see some lists like Frostlass, Monkey Dory. Like, there's decks that can make it pretty far in a tournament, especially when Melbourne Regionals had 563 players. No shame on the amount of players. Sometimes smaller events are more difficult to win, and with players like Brent, Daichi, and Natalie all in the top 8, you have to beat some really top tier talent, and that's not to even undervalue other players who are in cut, because I've heard of Jeremy, I've heard of Angus, I've heard of Callum. Like, there's a lot of really strong players who made top cuts, so great job to all of them. We're gonna move on to the Utrecht special events. Now, Utrecht seemed like the opposite of Melbourne Regionals, and we had a handful of players playing Dragapult. Now, I really like this take on Dragapult that played the Latias and the Maractus. Now, Maractus is pretty cool because a lot of decks like Joltik Box and Raging Bolt are only playing one Prime Catcher as their switch out. Obviously, you can only play one Prime Catcher, but it's not like they're playing a switch. They're not playing anything else. So if you look at this card over here, Genesect, if you Pokemon Tool card the Genesect, you can definitely sit here and Maractus and then put yourself in a position where you can draw 4 prize cards automatically with Maractus to win the game. So if I was playing Dragapult, I'd probably be playing straight Dragapult with Maractus to counter players that are playing Joltik Box or Raging Bolt that are only playing one switch out. It could be a Turo that you add to your deck, but if you are playing those decks, it's probably worthwhile to add in some kind of card that it will allow you to get out of this Maractus lock. It's not as big of a deal as you might think because of corner, just like retreat, 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 but they're going to use corner like 10 times on a Latias or something like that. And then they're going to bring up a Pheasantipity or something like that with a Dragapult and draw 4 prize cards at once. If you're able to win after your opponent draws 4 prize cards at once, after they've built up an entire board state, you've been hit the smithereens with Iono and all that stuff, you're more powerful than I am. You want to make sure that you have an answer to corner lock or whatever it is. Maractus just seems like a pretty good choice here. So that part's pretty cool that we saw the Dragapult there. We see other fantastic players like Alberto playing the deck. And then we see Raging Bolt. We see the exact same list as Christian Labella. I've talked enough about this list. Here's the exact list of what I expect many people to just play at Portland. Now, if you were preparing for Portland, I could see cutting maybe the Pal Pad for a Professor Turo or a Switch, something, so you have that additional out, so you're not just necessarily sitting there looking like dead meat against Maractus. Same thing would be for like a Joltik Box, which I'm assuming is got to be very similar across the board. We see Joltik Box. Some lists are not playing Iron Leafs, so I'd recommend at this point that Iron Leafs is something you at least consider in your deck, if not adding a switch to your deck. Iron Leafs is searchable, and when you play it down from your hand, you can switch and attack with it, but it's only usable once from that standpoint. You can see that this list has Prime Catcher. We see that there's a Vit Band. There's some cool cards added in this deck, so something definitely to consider there. Dragapult Dusknoir kind of showing its face. Noah Sakajian, great friend, great homie, great player. 100% showing how strong this deck can be. I know that Noah typically tests with Piper Lapine, who won those 2 regionals, I believe, last season or the season before. So really strong testing group there, and there's a whole bunch of other players that I could list. Regardless, pretty standard list here for Dragapult. Adding in Cleffa, probably taking a cue from Gardevoir's playbook, and having access to Grasping Draw, probably a good strat there. We also see Enzoric. Enzoric seems a little bit like it's falling off. And this looks like just a take on Lucas Singh's list. Yeah, maybe just a card off or something like that. Being able to just copy N-Star Manitan. Similar, very similar to what Terra Box would be for that two attack in one kind of situation with Flame Body Cannon. So that's kind of all right. But I think that the deck like does struggle against some other things. Typically it's been struggling against Joltik Box, which has exploded in popularity, and a handful of other decks. We also see Dragapult Charizard, which is kind of interesting. There was also a Dragapult Charizard, and another top cut for the other regionals we're going to be looking at. It's a full video here today, y'all. But we see Dragapult Charizard pop up. I don't think this is anything uncommon to see. It's just a deck that kind of exists in this current format. And I think sometimes it's better to have the Charizard than not. Other times I feel like the space would be better allocated towards playing all the cool cards, like we saw in this list right here with Maractus. So some cool things going on there. And that's kind of what really rounds out our top cut here. If we look over at the statistics, we can see Dragapult, Gardevoir, Raging Bolt, Joltik Box really being 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if we look into the decks that had double digits, because this is a much larger top cut due to the event size being double, more than double of what we saw at Melbourne, we see Goldango, Flareon, and then that's really where like the top 6 or so decks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decks, kind of like are playing off. So you can see that it's very similar, even though the results were a little bit different. And I think a lot of players are either going to be mastering Dragapult or mastering Gardevoir. And I know that even on the Shuffle Squad, players like Josh have typically played Gardevoir to a lot of success. I've played Dragapult to a lot of success, mainly League Cups and stuff like that, but like I haven't got a chance to play Dragapult in a major. I'll pull things off and I'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna play EV Box instead. I still make day 2 though. Regardless, it's one of those things where like not too many players master both. Obviously some very top players at the top of the game definitely can. And it's not to say that I can't play Gardevoir. I probably play Gardevoir 20 hours a week coaching. So throwing that out there, I know what I'm doing with the deck. But if you see players bounce back and forth, they probably haven't necessarily mastered one. I think a lot of players here in this region probably were playing Dragapults. And since players like Brent Tonneson do travel around the world, we can see that they've kind of switched back. So anyways, regardless, I think the correlation to what I'm trying to say is the stronger players played the deck that they wanted to play and they saw success. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's Dragapult or Gardevoir. They're both very complex decks that are very strong. Moving on to Santiago regionals. So this one, 1249, definitely a fairly sized event. And we see Gardevoir won again. William Azevedo, absolutely fantastic player, played the Gardevoir take with TM Evo. So having TM Evo and the one Buddy Poffin does give you a pretty great start against any of these decks that might be able to take out your Pokemon really early. They're able to just get this fantastic board set up, and if that works out, that works out. I think that it's something to consider when it goes over, like if you're playing Gardevoir, to maybe try this build out. However, the Brent's list is more successful. That doesn't necessarily always mean better. Sometimes you get a player that's very strong like Brent that plays a list and it works out. And also, dang, my stretchers are kind of expensive right now. That's over $3 a card. We see my pal and I want to say like local. I've seen Julian at a bunch of League Cups when I was in the Toronto area. And playing the exact same list as Christian Labella. I'm so happy for Julian to see great success with this. So that's absolutely amazing. Love it. And we can see that there's a couple Joltik Box here. So, I mean, nothing out of the ordinary, these lists. We did not see any Iron Leafs in here, so they do have the switch. So a lot of lists are going to the double switch card just to have an access or some kind of answer to Maractus. Protective Goggles is kind of cool, though, to stop weakness. I guess that's a good way to stop the weakness on Pikachu. Doesn't really help us get the extra energy on there, but it could be kind of cool if you power it up properly. So that's something to definitely consider. And it's also cool to see a player from China going all the way to Chile to play in a tournament. That's awesome. I love seeing how the game's globalized. Like if you see it like Brazil, Canada, China, it almost looks like worlds would be. So as a player that's grown up playing this game my entire life, I remember when I went to Australia for the international championships, and I was like literally one of like the only players there from Canada, and seeing like just this diverse top cut, that's amazing. We see Owen Dalgard playing what is presumed Ian Robb's masterclass video of Flareon box. And I mean, I think most lists are looking fairly similar across the board when it comes down to it. So I mean, we see we see a powerful archetype that can use Angelite against these Dragapult decks, maybe hold its own against Gardevoir, but it's something to consider if you're looking for an off the beaten path kind of deck. I know I've played it before. And then we see a Terapagos Noctowl deck that's somehow stuck in the cut. I don't necessarily like how Terapagos Noctowl is right now in this current metagame. There's definitely some interesting inclusions, like this Hoot Hoot with Silent Wing. Maybe they just didn't have the fourth Hoot Hoot. And there's also Volcanion here. Volcanion's cool because we can get through like Pikachu, and we can maybe get some knockouts on Pokemon like Raging Bolts, or maybe not Raging Bolt, Goldango to do 240 with Unified Beatdown, and then attack with, or then use a Scalding Steam sometime in that maneuver. The one Fire Energy is quite literally only useful on Volcanion, and that requires 2 Fire Energies. So I was talking to my friend Josh from Shuffle, and I was like, hey, is this like to like bait your opponent to think that they can use Scorching Cyclone? And if you have time to basically attach a Fire Energy to Volcanion to make your opponent think that they want to try to knock it out, probably in like, I just don't get it, to be honest. But fantastic job to them either way. I think Terapagos has fallen a little bit out of the metagame, and we see some cool things there. Again, it's a lot of the same metagame. We've seen Goldango Dragapult decks kind of pop up here and there. They've seen success. They seem to be falling out a little bit because I think Joltik Box has a fairly good matchup into it. Another Dragapult, Dusknoirs, Dragapult, Gardevoir. Like literally the format's just like, hey, where's Gardevoir, Raging Bolt, Joltik, and Dragapult, and Gardevoir, and whatever, like those 4 decks. We did see Camillo play Great Tusk to Dunsparce all the way to a top 16 finish. So that's kind of cool, especially playing a unique deck. So that's something to consider here if you are thinking about trying something very unique. So we have some options, and I think for me, the biggest change to the metagame that I see is really Raging Bolts existing, Joltik Boxes existing, Dragapult and Gardevoir are a step above those decks, and then Dango, Terrabox, maybe like are just kind of rounding it out, maybe with Eevee Box up next pretty close, depending on which region you're playing it in. You can see like the metagame's pretty similar across the board when we're seeing these events as well from when it comes down to the official stream. So I will put the links to all 3 of these events. They're available on the Limitless website. So if you ever want to see these tournaments, you can always check them out. There's the special event, the regionals, and even if you want to check out past events, because you've heard me talk about Milwaukee a few times, would totally love to provide that information to all y'all so you could check it out. As for me, my next event is the North American International Championships. So if you could see upcoming events, I'm skipping Portland, and then I'm going to NAIC. So I still have a few weeks to prepare for this tournament. I'm excited. That's when we get Destined Rivals, the set with Team Rocket's Mewtwo EX. Not sure if I'm going to play it, probably won't, but we'll see how everything else goes. Other than that, if you need any of the cards for this deck, check out our sponsors at Kayfabe Cards, PTCGL Store, and Ultimate Guard. And if you're looking to prepare for your next event, hit me up for some coaching. Other than that, I'll catch up with all y'all later. Peace out, much love, and we'll talk soon. Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes.
旅の始まりは常に道への一歩である。それは闇へと続く。初めの一歩を踏み出すには勇気がいる。そして旅の終わりには旅を始めた時の自分とは別人になっているかもしれない。旅に出よう。物語の次の章がお主を待っている。将軍の道を歩め。侍の箱とともに。アルティメットガードが送る冒険の第一章。刀将軍の道、近日発売。
Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed the content that we have today, and maybe you'll click on one of these other videos, enjoy those videos too. If you haven't already, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments what video you want to watch next. Until next time, we'll catch up with all y'all later. Have yourself a great day.